cities are home to 60% of the world's population. They're not only centers for human activity, but also hubs for consumption. The decisions made within cities, especially in the context of urban development, have far-reaching consequences to our planet. Secondly, cities are responsible for generating 50% of waste generation, underscoring a substantial environmental impact. The way we manage our waste in our urban centers carries profound implications on the health of our ecosystems. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, cities contribute to 70% of the energy use and around 75% of greenhouse gas emissions. So it is pivotal to focus on cities in our pursuit to net zero. And the decisions we make regarding the energy use, transportation, and urban planning have direct implications for our ability to achieve a sustainable future. It is clear that the scale of these challenges is immense, but also is the potential for change. Today in this panel discussion, you can see we have board members of the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team, which I'm gonna allow some time to have some introductions, and then we're gonna start with the first question.
Good morning, everybody. Just to introduce myself, my name is Faisal Rashid. Beside my role as the chairman of the Advanced Net Zero team, I'm also a senior director at Dubai Supreme Council of Energy, leading the DSM directorate, looking into whole DSM energy, including water, electricity, and fuel abatement in the Emirates of Dubai.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mustafa Anzi, board member of the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team, and at the same time working for IBEC Energy, energy services company, with a focus on building envelope.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Faranaz. I am an engineer. I am a board member of the Advancing Net Zero Group, and I'm the director of ESG and innovation for AECOM. I'm also part of the team that's technically delivering COP28 as a carbon neutral event for the host country. And I'm an author. I wrote a book called Net Zero City, and today I'm launching my second book called Climate Mission Zero. It's a book on climate change for children. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Saiduddin Mohammed. I'm a board member at ANZ volunteering group. I'm a certified energy manager, lead green associate, and certified implementer on integrated management systems. I've been living in UAE since 2004, have implemented lots of energy management projects and renewable energy projects. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you all with us today. I would like to kick off the panel discussion with a question to Faisal about the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team. So the team was created this year, and if you can tell us more about the objectives and what challenges does the team aim to address in the UAE?
To begin with, I just want to give some sort of highlight on what we have here in the UAE. So I think from government side or from the public sector side, we have grown tremendously in terms of dealing with energy management, dealing with circularity, energy efficiency, energy security. So there is an active, I think, process with respect whether it is federal government, whether it is local government. I can speak about Dubai. So we already have a mature process. We have guiding strategy, then we have sub-strategies as well. We have a roadmap as well and a target. And all these, I think, work have been activated since 2010. And all these strategies have been also upgraded to net zero objectives as well. Okay. Having said so, I think there is we have recognized a gap in terms of fully dedicated entities looking at the net zero objective and target, and based on this, I think, finding, we have, this has led into creation of net zero volunteering team, basically to fill the missing gap and work with government, whether federal, whether local government, to join them and then advocate net zero element in the future. We consist of board members. I think we are mostly here sitting in front of you, and also we have tens of volunteers helping our objective or helping our guide. We have already conducted 2 events basically and attracted many people, and our scope basically to raise the awareness level, raise the education level among the public, get involved in producing a report, running survey, running research, working side by side with the government, whether federal, whether local government, to help reaching the sustainability goal, also to support them in terms of analytical aspect. We can support both government in that term. So we are basically a platform to promote social responsibility, to inspire the youngster expertise in climate change action. It's a platform for best practices, for innovation, and so on.
Thank you, Faisal. So as mentioned, the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team has spent some time this year into understanding, surveying into understanding the net zero readiness of industries and communities. So I would like to continue this conversation with Farah as the lead of the communities group. Can you tell us more about the community survey and what are the findings and to which extent communities are ready to achieving net zero?
So we ran a survey this year across 7 Emirates, and we received 400 plus response. Survey was open 3 to 4 weeks, and we had responses from private sector, public sector, government officials, entrepreneurs, people who are living and working here. The key finding from this survey was that people understood that net zero readiness, so the idea of the survey was to understand a net zero readiness check, because the UAE government announced the net zero intentions, and we wanted to see how ready the market is, what are the biggest challenges, barriers, and what's already happening, because we really need to know good case studies, stories, and role models. What came out of the survey was very interesting. They're really good projects taking place, but people wanted to know more and do more. And that's a key finding, because there are 1 or 2 case studies in different communities taking place, but people might not often know what's exactly happening. So knowledge and awareness is very much linked with that. Secondly, we found that there's a lot of technological awarenesses, but people wanted some incentives to drive the technology and link the technology with carbon emissions, carbon reductions, not just energy reductions targets, so which was also a very important finding. And the third key finding we found was that the industry, 40% people on the survey wanted to have net zero by 2030, but they were concerned, 2040. 40% wanted a net zero transition by 2040, but they expressed the concern that achieving it might not be possible. But we also had a survey section where we asked people to write their thoughts. And what people wrote was very interesting. They said it might not be possible to achieve complete 40%, but what they felt was that if we try to achieve it, even if we fail, we would do much better than having a lower target. And that part of the conversation we found very interesting, because the respondents actually wrote that on the note. What it showed us that there's a lot of positivity and optimism, but there's a lot of opportunity as well, And there's a real opportunity of bringing the climate finance, climate investment, climate technologies together in a more coherent manner, which I think we all talk about in cities, in here, in different parts of the world. But having data coming from people, from 7 Emirates, from United Arab Emirates, really provides a strong business case of how this transition would look like from a people's perspective, a people's voice. So that finding was very important for us to take this conversation forward and gave us a really good check of where we are in terms of net zero readiness, not just because it's not a technical challenge, it's a human challenge. It requires a lot of mindset shifts. So that was very good and clarity information that was quite helpful.
Thank you for very, very, very interesting findings in terms and how, because people are the center of cities and communities, so understanding their perspective towards net zero and their ambition and their position is very important. So I would like to zoom in with Mustafa and Sayed into buildings. You know, buildings are key in communities, and if we want to achieve net zero, we need to decarbonize buildings. So my first question is on the major load in buildings in this part of the world, which is cooling. So 70% of the electricity consumption in buildings is consumed by cooling systems. So my question is, what is the role of efficient cooling in achieving net zero, and what are the challenges to move to efficient cooling technologies here?
Thank you, Majid. So we have actually a subgroup within the volunteering team that specifically looks at efficient cooling and how we can, assess different types of buildings and the suitable cooling solutions for them. The team is looking at district cooling facilities, water-cooled plants, air-cooled chillers, DX systems. There is a study from the Dubai Regulatory and Supervisory Bureau that was done a couple of years back that actually studied the different types of cooling in Dubai and what is the performance of the different types. So you can see significant differences in terms of energy efficiency based on technology. So within this subgroup, we're working on a white paper that is coming up and will be also shared online through our platform for the volunteers. So keep a look on the platform to see when the report will be ready. Besides the technologies, we also look at the models. How can we deliver new business models to the end users, to the market, that will help us to roll out more efficient cooling. And I think Sayed will be able to answer on that because they're working on a project at the moment on that.
Thanks, Mustafa. So he's covered most of the technical aspects, and I'll address the commercial, which is the business models. We've seen that there is a growing trend in the UAE on having cooling as a service. And you know that sustainability, decarbonization, circularity, they all work hand in hand. And product as a service, wherever it is implemented, it complements all these objectives. So we are now looking at some projects where we can implement cooling as a service model, which helps the product, the asset owner or manager to shift all their responsibilities to the CAS provider, cooling as a service provider. And the cooling as a service provider in turn takes over the responsibility of paying the utility costs, operating and maintaining the equipment, billing and collection, which is a big headache for the property managers, right? So they also take responsibility of that. The tenures are long term, typically 10 to 15 years, and it helps not only the new constructions but also the existing buildings. So this is something that we are looking at now.
Yeah, we need innovative business models for cooling. And so cooling is part of the issue, but also if we want knowing that 50% of the buildings by 2050 already exist, we need to retrofit buildings. So my question here to Faisal first, retrofitting is key to achieving net zero and the decarbonization of the built environment. In your opinion, what are the challenges in decarbonizing existing buildings in the UAE, and how can these challenges be addressed?
To begin with, I just want to share with you some of the data that I have collected with respect to building. So there are billions of buildings existing across the world, and 95% of the existing building across the world, all type of building, commercial, residential, government building, industries as well, they count for billions in terms of number, and mostly they are inefficient building. They comply with the old code. So even if we have the most aggressive retrofit program, I think it will be a big challenge to sort of transform anything in 10 years or even in 20 years. So that will be a key challenge. So I think the solution is to have not just one financial solution, maybe different sources of finance from government, from private, to address I think different responsibilities as well. So these buildings can be decarbonized. On top of that, I think light retrofit will not solve the issue. I think it has to go to deep retrofit, addressing all elements. So bringing the topic more locally, I can give example in Dubai. We have around 135,000 or 140 buildings in Dubai. They are mostly inefficient and also comply to the old code. But if we look at our region, I think due to the nature of our climate, the intensity of building in our region, and whether Dubai or UAE or GCC, I think higher because of the our harsh climate, because of the high temperature, because of low rainfall that we have to deal with water. So that makes energy and water intensity very high. So I can share with you, I think the average building intensity in Dubai or UAE around 200 to 250 kilowatt hour per square meter per year. And maybe I think it's a challenge, or one of the solutions to bring it down to below 90 kilowatt hour per square meter per year. So the viable solution maybe is to address cooling, and if these buildings are in district cooling zone, then it is more challenging to lower the intensity of the building. I think the solar rooftop is another solution, especially for smaller unit, for horizontal project or smaller villas and so on. For high, for skyline building, I think it will be more challenging because of the, limitation in terms of solar rooftop. So will not be able to raise or lower the intensity of these high-rise building easily. But there are many, I think, promising technology like facade solar to bring the intensity lower. So yes, I think in general these are the challenges and the solution.
Yeah, it's definitely very challenging. And I would like to hear also Mustafa's opinion on this, what technologies, that there's a lot of talk in COP around technologies, that technologies exist to achieving net zero from the existing building perspective. But from your point of view, from your experience working with ESCOs, how far are we from decarbonizing the existing building stock?
Yeah, so you rightly mentioned the technology is available. We have reference projects, but what is lacking is really the business case. The business case to resolve the issue why an owner needs to invest and the benefits go to the tenant. It's a common problem, it's not something new. It has been addressed for many years, but still not resolved. And we see in the field that you would have a building with even a single glass windows, and there is no business model viable to upgrade this building, because the owner doesn't see any interest in investing money in replacing the single glass to double glazing, because the benefits are actually going to the tenants because they're paying for the energy bills. So what kind of mechanisms can we develop to incentivize that? And I think if we don't attach any value or let's say business case to this kind of challenges, that will be again dragging. So we need to see for a way where, for example, the owner also can get some of the returns, some of the investment that are made in upgrading these buildings. Besides that, what we see in the market, there's a lot of focus on replacement of equipment, because that's relatively common. But if we want to go to a net zero environment or building stock, we need to kind of zoom out and understand where all the systems are connecting and what is driving this. So if you want to end up at net zero, you need to understand that you need to have a certain part or renewables covering your building consumption. If you go back in that chain, you end up at the building envelope. So it starts from there. If you improve the building envelope and reduce the heat gain into your building, you would need less cooling. And as you rightly mentioned, 70% of the energy consumption is for cooling. So if you can reduce that requirement, you can reduce the capacity of your equipment for the HVAC, for the air side, for the pumps, for everything. And that will also help you later on in the embedded carbon of your equipment that you're buying. If you're buying a chiller, smaller size chiller will have less embedded carbon than a large chiller. So yeah, these are the challenges that we see at the moment, and I think what the volunteering team is doing is creating this awareness by the subgroups that are working now on the white paper, and sessions like this to raise this awareness and keep pushing to resolve these barriers from the market.
Thanks, Mustafa. I think it's decarbonizing buildings. First, we have the building envelope, so focus on building envelope is critical. And it's difficult, definitely it's very difficult. So Sayed, to fully decarbonize the building, we need photovoltaics, and we need systems, additional systems, maybe smart building technologies. So if you can complement what Mustafa spoke about in terms of envelope and systems, what is the role of PV and smart building technologies in achieving decarbonization, and what are the challenges in the market?
To start with, continuing on what Mustafa said, decarbonization through retrofitting buildings, of course it's a challenge, and also there is an issue with financing. Like Engineer Faisal said, there are around 135,000 buildings in Dubai. If you look at the overall UAE number, it is around 500,000 buildings, multi-family buildings, and small portion of them are owned or managed by large organizations who have easy access to finance and financing tools in the market. But the majority of these buildings are owned by individual owners or family businesses who do not have sufficient finance or neither the access to the financial tools in the market. So we need to look at this factor to enable having more retrofitting in the UAE. Now, when it comes to the other sources of energy, like photovoltaic, definitely it helps a lot. The challenge, obviously, is the availability of space, because, like Engineer Faisal said, we can install these panels on the rooftops or on the ground mount if you have large space, or on the carport. These are the only three places where you can install. Now, for high-rise buildings, definitely it's a big challenge because the rooftop is taken by other services, so there is not much space available. Apart from this, which I feel that should be the only limitation, space availability, there are other challenges in the market, like regulations. Different emirates have different regulations on the capacity that can be installed. So capacity should not be a limitation from a regulation point of view, But the limitation should only be the space availability, and then it should depend on the owner on how much space they can utilize to install the panels. So regulation is a challenge. We hope that during the COP28 or immediately after that, there will be a unified regulation in the UAE allowing more owners to install PV panels on their properties. On the technical part, we have seen a lot of improvement in the efficiency of the modules. 10 years down the line, we used to see panels that were 10 to 15% efficient, but nowadays the accepted or installed modules are around 22 to 25% efficient. If we can increase that through research and development to somewhere around 35 to 40% of efficiency, then it will help again a lot in reducing the electricity purchase from conventional sources. Pricing is not a problem because first of all the rates have gone down, and secondly there are plenty of players available in the market today who are providing solar lease agreements. So the owners or managers of properties, they do not have to invest upfront. They can appoint these companies who are providing lease agreements and then pay for the electricity produced through the PV panels. So this is how we can achieve the targets.
Can I add something? I think it's really important for cities to decarbonize, to start looking at city-level district energy solution or district cooling solutions. It links back to Engineer Faisal and your points as well, because space-wise in existing property, it's very hard to create space and it gets challenging. But if it's a district level, like a neighborhood level solution, then it becomes more tangible. And we have those solutions in UK and also in here in these Emirates as well, like sustainable cities, and there are other communities which have done it. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. Not everything went positive, but I think if we really look at the lessons learned and look at like neighborhood level, what are the decarbonization solutions using solar thermal technologies, hydrogen, backup batteries, then the scalability and marketability will be much easier. Like for example, 10 years ago, the solar prices was what, $10 US, and now it's like less than $1, right? So 10 years is a long time, and we don't want to wait another 10 years to find what's the best solution. So speeding up scalability, and I think the market access to mass scale is quite important. And we do see that in this part of the world, cities are being built. We don't talk about 500 villas, we talk about 5,000 villas, right? So I think that thinking, that mindset shift, business case of community level solutions is vital for the transition and for the business case to work.
To add on to that, actually, and definitely we have to look at that community level. And if you see, for example, in some cases you have a district cooling, let's say, a supplier covering an area, and it's all residential. So in the morning, during weekdays, everyone goes to their work. So the demand for cooling for that area kind of plunges down, which makes the efficiency of the plant very bad, basically. So if you look at the community and you mix residential with offices, you have that transition, but you still have a kind of balance, so you can optimize the energy performance of that district. And if you combine it also with storage capacities for neighborhood with solar, that makes it economically viable and helps us come close to net zero communities.
Faisal, do you want to add a bit about the leading role maybe on district cooling in Dubai? So, because Dubai has been doing a lot of efforts in district cooling.
Yeah, I just want to make also a general comment on what Saeed have mentioned about the limitation or capping capacity for solar. The good news is we just heard the announcement that the capping is removed, especially for the industries. So before it was limited to 1 megawatt, so that is I think decapped. Especially when we talk about industries, they have more space in terms of factory building, in terms of warehouses, so it's easy for them to utilize their roof and utilize area to produce energy. Farah mentioned district energy also. I think this is also an opportunity to look at maybe existing community like mall having community solar or distributed solar, so it can provide some sort of capacity to the community. Mustafa mentioned technical solution, technical measures. So definitely these measures are viable to a large extent. And some of the difficult measures are part of the research and development aspect, and they should come in the future if we intensify our effort in research. Of course, district cooling is one of the things that Dubai is famous for. I think our share of district cooling is very high, I think leading the whole world in terms of the share of cooling in a city. So it's close to 30% if we look at all, whether district cooling, whether efficient cooling. So our share of district cooling is around 30%. I think no cities in the world is basically reach that level. What this means, I think, is if you compare efficient cooling versus non-efficient, it's basically in mathematical form, it is 0.85 kilowatt hour per refrigerant ton, the efficiency of the cooling by district cooling, and versus the non-efficient cooling, whether it is air cooling, whether it is window cooling, it is around 1.5, so almost 50% efficiency you get from cooling. And looking at our climate change, definitely district cooling is a solution, but it needs to be laid down on the right, basically, ground.
Thanks, Faisal. This leads me to my last question and I would like to open the discussion with everyone, because the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team was created with a key objective to activate the role of expert volunteers in climate action. And today we are in the Youth Day, so I would like to hear your opinion about the involvement of volunteers, especially youth and industry professionals, in leading and in contributing to these initiatives to the subgroups. So were there challenges to mobilize volunteers within the team, and how engaged do you see youth in such activities? Maybe Farah, you smiled. Do you want to start?
So there's a lot of enthusiasm, and when we put the advert out, you did it in LinkedIn, 500 people wanted to join. Then I sent a meeting invite and 100 people accepted. And then actually, on the day of the meeting, 32 people showed up. What I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of enthusiasm out there, but in order to drive change, we need people actively involved in delivering things. And I often say that in many meetings. So what we did is, through these 32 people, we interviewed them to identify where their skill sets best sits. And we found some people are interested in research, some people are interested in the marketing side of things, and some people are just interested to put the report together and they didn't want to do anything else. But at the end of the day, we found 5 volunteers who were really committed. That means they showed up, they responded via email, and through those 5 volunteers, we drove the survey and all that. But these 5 volunteers were guided by the committee members. We have 5 committee members as well, so it's a group of 10 people. And that worked quite well. So what we found is that there's a lot of enthusiasm out there, but these 10 people, like 5 members of the cities and communities group, and the 5 volunteers, so all of them are volunteers in different tiers and different levels, drove this forward. And we're really blessed because it took a lot of tenacity to go through. The data analysis was the biggest part. What we also found is that we had 400 plus respondents. When the survey was released, each of the volunteers personally emailed people. And that really made a difference. And then they followed up. So that shows commitment, right? Personally email people, following up, and making sure they completed the surveys. So yes, it was challenging, but at the end of the day, you really need people who are passionate but also level to be resilient. And that's the biggest resilience test as a volunteering team. Because a lot of people have passion, but sometimes when work pressure kicks in, the passion kind of vaporizes away. Okay? So, but yes, so we found that process, it worked for us in that way, but I'm sure others have other experiences.
No, so likewise from our side also, like you said, we have a huge interest, and then the meeting, and then the tasks, but you end up with a small group actually who is really passionate and want to put in the effort and time. Nevertheless, we believe that even the other members who are more passive in this involvement, it's required, because these are young professionals, youth, that will be making decisions in driving us to net zero by 2050, right? So if we get them involved now, and they understand the subject, they understand the matter, they understand where the direction that we want to go to, this will help us later on, because we have seen from our experience in the past with regards to energy efficiency and in the ESCO market, a lot of effort and energy was spent on convincing someone about why should you reduce your energy consumption? If the building is operating, there are no complaints, why should I invest in, right? I don't need to do that. So if we get the youth involved, we get the young professionals involved, we can avoid that convincing part, the stage where you have to convince someone why they need to become net zero, and you can go directly into how can we make it happen.
I think also from my experience with volunteers, it has been rewarding and challenging at the same time. And but it's also very rewarding when you see people who are very passionate, putting their time, their effort, and joining the cause. And I think this was really impressive this year to see. I think we have some time for Q&A. So if we have any questions, yes, please.
This question's for Farah. Thank you firstly for the insightful conversation. Educating youth is interesting. I read recently there's an 8% growth of green jobs over the last 5 years. So their opportunity is there, but there's still a skills gap, because a lot of those that are coming into the industry are quite young, obviously, and they don't have the experience that you guys have. So for me, that's a challenge. There's definitely a skills gap. But what I think's more important is that who are you educating? We often find in the engineering sector that it's a lot of what you're talking about. There's a lot of people with passion, but they're not always the people that are engineering the cities of the future, the buildings of the future. And so sometimes you need to tap into the people who are perhaps not as passionate, because they're still the people that are going to provide that. So my question is, how are you going to positively influence those that perhaps are not as traditionally minded, the sort of the older generation of engineers, let's say, who are not, sustainability is still a new thing perhaps to them. And this is, I'm asking this because this is the challenge we have in the engineering sector. Okay.
Thank you very much. I think it's an excellent question. I think if we look at, if we compare what we have today to what we used to be like 10 years ago, the sustainability or the net zero element wasn't basically known to many people. So today, if you look at the college community or academic community, you can see that this topic itself is part of the curriculum. I know from my own family that whether it is high school, whether it is college or university, they teach energy efficiency, they teach sustainability. It started with, I think, just a chapter, and now it became a dedicated topic. And on top of that, I think they have sort of energy day where they celebrate with, I think they celebrate day linked to energy. So within this, I think the agenda covers many elements, including energy efficiency, decarbonization, circularity. So the level of awareness, I think, is increasing, and also we basically who work in energy, we visit these campuses, we sit with the, I think, with the youngster, exchange views and work with them in different platforms. So yes, I think we're not 100% to where we want to be, but I think it's moving positively.
So if I want to add also one point to this on the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team. So as Farah mentioned, the communities team is composed of 5 main members who she's leading, and there's also additional 5 volunteers. So this interaction between the 5 and the other 5 is creating a kind of like a mentorship relationship where it really provides information and awareness and also educates the youth that are still at the early stage of their careers from experts in the market and from the best in the market. So that's the great thing about the Advancing Net Zero volunteering team, because you have a team of experts that are volunteers and helping other younger volunteers also in their careers together, working all together to advancing the agenda of decarbonization. Do we have another question?
Yusuf from Taka Solutions. One question for Said, if possible. You mentioned cooling as a service, and what's happened for the last, let's say, 5 years, a lot of companies are trying to establish the divisions for cooling as a service. What is, from your point and experience, is the major challenges into the market, noting that Europe, US, a lot of cooling as a service firms are going exponentially. So what is the main challenges over here in the UAE?
Thank you. So for cooling as a service, it can be implemented in 2 stages, right? Either at the time of construction, or if it was not done then during the operations of the building. In both cases, the service provider first needs to be transparent. This is number 1. In sharing all the, let's say, financials related to the project throughout the life cycle. It should not be like there are terms and conditions which are not very clearly explained to the clients in the beginning, and then they come to know down the line and it comes as a surprise, etc., etc. So these kind of things happen in the market. Secondly, the solution should cover end-to-end. There should not be, the offer being submitted should not cover the attractive parts, let's say, and then leave out the rest to the client. Either you provide end-to-end solution or you don't offer the service at all. When you provide end-to-end services, and then you are very transparent with all the financial, technical aspects of the project, then I don't see any challenge in clients accepting, because there is no upfront cost on them at all, and they pay for the utility as a service. So these are the 2 main challenges that you need to. Thank you.
I think we can conclude now our session. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Thanks to the World Green Economy Organization. Thanks, Jerome, for having us. We look forward to continuing our collaboration. And thank you, everyone. Thanks.